Hi, welcome to AAPI Voice. My name is Lisa Gray. With me is my co-host, Grace Lee, a well-respected community and a business leader.
Hi, I'm Grace Lee. Lisa and I have been working with the community in the past decade. AAPI Voice is a program to promote Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and also build social, cultural, business, education, and political bridges between the AAPI community and the communities at large.
Our guest today is Fayrouz Saad, who is Governor Whitmer Appointed Executive Director for the Office of Global Michigan. Hi, Fayrouz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
First, could you please introduce yourself, your background and experience, and your vision to our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I really appreciate the time to be with the two of you, two women who are leaders in your own rights in your own communities. And I've really enjoyed working with you both on a various number of projects through my office in the state. So thank you for your leadership and for inviting me to be with you today. So my name is Fayrouz Saad, again, for everyone. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Global Michigan. I am an appointee of Governor Whitmer. I serve on her cabinet. And essentially, the Office of Global Michigan, which is located in the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, is the office that leads the state and advises the governor on immigration policy, immigrant integration issues, policies, and programs across state government that affect immigrant, refugee, new American, and our global community. And so we really try and work at the nexus between immigrant communities and the organizations that serve them, and state government and the resources and information and policies that are happening on this side, and make sure that we're connecting the dots when needed, but also then identifying and meeting gaps when those are identified. So I got into this role. I've had a long career in public service. I'm from Michigan. I started my career here in different capacities. I started working in the State House of Representatives. From there, I went on to work in the Barack Obama administration as a presidential appointee. While there, I largely worked on a various number of national security issues. And then after a few years of living and working in DC, I decided that it was time to come back home to Michigan. And so I packed up my stuff. I first went to Boston and got my graduate degree so I can keep up with everyone here in Michigan. And then I came home and I started working in Detroit, actually, immediately for Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, serving as his first director and the first director of immigrant affairs within the city of Detroit. So it was a really interesting opportunity. We got to work on, I got to lead the city on a number of things, from creating the Detroit ID program to helping develop and implement the city's first refugee resettlement program. And it's where I got to meet a lot of people, many of whom I'm sure you all work with, and many of whom who might be watching us now. But and I really began to learn the state again and understand the needs and challenges that our global community face every day. And so after a few years of working within the Duggan administration, I started to see things change at the national level in terms of policies and programs and rhetoric that I felt was unfairly targeting our communities. And I just really felt like there was more I could do to help counter that narrative and support some of our most vulnerable here in the state of Michigan. And so I actually ran for office, and so I ran for Congress, unfortunately unsuccessfully, but it was an incredible opportunity and perspective. And through that, I got to meet a lot of folks who are now my colleagues in state government, and certainly got a chance to get to know Governor Whitmer a little bit better, and then had the fortune of her asking me to join her administration in this capacity. And so, we've really gotten to expand our footprint a little bit of what we can do as a state of Michigan, as a state government, as a Whitmer administration to support our immigrant, refugee, new American, and global community. So I'll just leave it at there, and certainly I know we'll continue to have a discussion around that.
Can you share with us the mission and the histories of Global Michigan? And what is the reporting structures, and what other groups do you cooperate with to meet the Global Michigan's goal?
Yeah, so I really appreciate the question, and another reason why I appreciate the time being here with you today, because a lot of people don't know who we are, where we are, or even that we exist. So first of all, I often like to tell people that Global Michigan, while sounds new, is actually not that new. It builds upon an office created in the previous administration called the Michigan Office of New Americans, which did a lot of the same work and has since grown since its original inception. Since Governor Whitmer took office and following an executive order that created the Office of Global Michigan, it also placed it within the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, which is new for the office in this work. And so we just felt that given the current debate and the narrative and everything happening within our communities, that it was really important that we looked at this work through an economic equity lens as much as possible, knowing at the same time that there's a span of issues and policies and programs that affect our communities that we also have to try and address on a day-to-day basis. And so there is a constant, I think, check and balance amongst us within the office, and really making sure that we are working to address some of the most pressing needs within the community. And so the office, as it currently exists, so I'm the executive director, and then within the office, there is the New Americans program, which includes our refugee resettlement program. So the program that essentially leads and coordinates and helps monitor a lot of the refugee resettlement activity within the state of Michigan, as well as another program called the Michigan International Talent Solutions, or MITS for short, because we know we're in Michigan, so everything is done through something related back to our mitten, but nevertheless, and that works directly with highly skilled, internationally trained professionals who have moved to Michigan and are looking to work within their field of professionalization or study. And so through that work, and prior to my getting here, the office did a lot of work in working with our licensing and regulatory affairs agency, which is where it used to exist at LARA, to help really understand and maybe even provide guidelines or pathways through different certification and licensing programs for our internationally trained professionals. And I won't get into too many of the details. A lot of this stuff is on our website, and we can certainly kind of ask more later. And then also part of the office is our ethnic commissions, which is at least one way how I know the both of you. So the state has 3 ethnic commissions, MAPAC, so the Michigan Asian Pacific American Affairs Committee, I believe, and the next is HLCOM, the Hispanic and Latino Commission, and CIMIA, the Commission on Middle Eastern American Affairs. So these commissions are all consist of gubernatorial appointees So the governor does decide for each commission those who will serve. They come, as you all know, but for others, the diversity on all of these commissions is so wonderful. I mean, within MAPAC, you see people across the state who represent different ethnicities within the APAC community. And it's just really refreshing and wonderful to see how everyone comes together to work together as community leaders in identifying the challenges and helping meet some of the gaps that they're seeing within each of their individual communities. So we also work with the ethnic commissions, obviously very closely, on trying to get directly to our global community across the state of Michigan. We are, with all of that, we are a small office. And so we are about 11, I want to say, full-time staff, and then 3 part-time staff in the commissions. And so all of this work is not done by a lot of people, as you might have guessed. And so, you know, I really rely on our stakeholders and our commissioners and our commissions to help get directly to the people that we're trying to serve. And so, and to answer the last part of your question, obviously our ethnic commissions are a big piece of who we work with, who we partner with to get a lot of the work done. But we are constantly working hard to develop these partnerships and bring new people in as partners into the work we do. We've partnered a lot with our ethnic chambers of commerce across the state of Michigan to, again, kind of just help in getting information to the people and also getting that information back to us. We hold regular roundtables and information sessions and things like that. And we also work with immigrant rights groups directly on, as you can imagine, on a whole host of issues that come up. And so we certainly work a ton with ACLU and the Michigan Immigrant Rights Committee. And so, I mean, you know, the span of stakeholders and the issues that they're working on individually as organizations is really across the spectrum. And we really do our best to try and partner with those organizations and community leaders so that we can really understand and make sure that we're meeting the needs and at least have our ear to the ground of what's happening.
API has been impacted significantly during this pandemic, especially on the business side. What has Global Michigan done to help the community, and what are the future plans?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you asked that because I'll obviously talk about what we've done, but obviously we can always do more. And that's why I am so excited and jumped at the opportunity to have this conversation with you all, because hopefully there's folks who are watching or listening in or whatever it might be who, you know, might say like, hey, you know, I'd really like to work with the Office of Global Michigan and doing something within my community or for organizations and individuals that I serve. So what we have seen as the biggest need and how we can play the biggest role during this pandemic, one is that we have worked very closely with the governor's office and the executive orders that they have been putting out, as you all have seen, pretty regularly in response to the pandemic, starting with the stay-at-home order months ago now, which probably to a lot of us feels like years ago, but believe it or not, that was only about 5 or 6 months ago. And ensuring that these executive orders are translated into at least 6 languages, actually. And we work directly with our commissions to make sure that we're kind of getting the right languages that meet some of the biggest needs kind of coming from the community. And then And then furthermore, once that information is translated and to a certain degree also maybe broken down so that it is easy to understand and, you know, isn't just overly complicated with overly legal language, we then share that with all the stakeholders I mentioned previously. And so we blast it out. As you all know from kind of being on the commissions yourselves and hopefully from your colleagues, we then share it with you all and put a lot of pressure on you all to make sure you get it into the hands of the people that need to see it the most. And so that is something that we work very hard on. And Karen Philippi, who many of you know in our office, she really took the lead on that and continues to work really hard to make sure critical information is getting translated and then out to the communities. The next thing that we've done and we continue to do is hold information sessions. Now, they're not regular, and what I mean by that is that there isn't a date or time on the calendar happening regularly, but rather we try and tailor information sessions as needed. And so we've had at least one or two, I believe, with the APIA community regarding small business, I think, needs and ensuring that people know what the small business programs are at the state level, as well as what are the requirements now coming from MIOSHA. What are small businesses expected to do in order to reopen if they hadn't reopened already or stay open. And so we again, like I talked about earlier, about really trying to be that nexus between state government, its policies, its programs, and the communities that we're trying to serve. This is a really good example of that, and that really trying to make sure that everyone is connecting the dots. And so bringing the information directly to the people where they're at. And so, you know, Grace Lee was so kind and generous in working with other MAPAC commissioners and staff at MAPAC to help put on at least one or two of these sessions. And I know, Lisa, you've been so critical in then making sure that it gets to people through a various number of formats. And so that's just one example of the type of work that we've been doing. And there's more coming. And we're hoping to work on a workforce programs one. And it doesn't have to stop there. Like I said, I mean, these are often built off of what I'm hearing from you all. And what either it's chatter on the ground that I just happened to hear, or someone has reached out to me directly and said, hey, we're having all these conversations and we realize people don't know what's available at the state level. They don't know what the workforce programs are, so on and so forth. And so, you know, I take that and I run with it. And then we're able to work closely together to put together a program that has critical but necessary information on our side, bring the right people, the right subject matter experts that can answer maybe some of the detailed or difficult questions and take it again directly to the people. So, you know, we're all in a virtual world now. In the past, you know, we would work to hold town halls and a different type of in-person discussions. But to a certain degree, this has really allowed us to even, I think, amplify the message further and make sure we can more easily meet people where they're at. And working through the organizations and individuals that they know and that they're familiar with. You know, while I would love to meet everyone individually and I would love the opportunity, I would love it if everyone knew me and felt comfortable enough to email or call me and ask me for something like this. I recognize that they don't know me. So Fayrouz calling them or emailing them and saying, hey, come to this event is not as effective as Grace Lee or Lisa making those phone calls and getting those emails from you all.
AAPI is a truly diversified group. The ethnic compositions and business are very different between different regions of Michigan. I'm sure this applies to other ethnic groups as well. So how has your office been working to meet all different needs of each group?
Yeah, so I kind of got to that a little bit in my last question, but I'll certainly expand on it a bit. So Because first we work really closely with the governor's office through the appointments process and make sure that at the very least, the commission reflects that diversity and reflects that really kind of the span of folks that have different experiences, within the state of Michigan. And so, and I know the governor's office and the director of appointments is really committed to that. And so that's one of the most important ways that we do this, because as you can hopefully have seen from what I've said so far, that these are the individuals that are critical to us in working with the communities and understanding their needs. So that's first. Second is that, we try, again, to have our ear to the ground and really kind of making sure that when there are critical needs that come up, or there is a situation like the pandemic that has arisen, we go directly to you all. And so, for example, when at the beginning of the pandemic, when there was a discussion about what languages to translate the materials in, knowing that we didn't have the resources and the funds to translate into everything, that what would be the most critical. And so, we called the chair, Tashiki, directly and said, okay, your community, what the greatest need is, how, if you had one language that you say we should translate into, what would that be, and he gave us his feedback. And a lot of times we go with the feedback that we're hearing. And so, again, we really rely on these partnerships and on these comments kind of coming from community leaders, but it is diverse. And I do understand that there's probably some things we're missing along the way. And so this is a request also from me to say, like, if there are folks that we're missing, if there are communities that feel like they can benefit from the work and services that our offices provide, please, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Global Michigan has very extensive information on talent solutions, refugee services, legal services, and even driving license information in multiple languages on the website. But there's none in Asian languages. Is there a plan to have the information in any of the Asian languages?
So in terms of the information already on the website, I will say a lot of that is information that we've gathered from other departments and agencies that they had translated, and knowing that it's valuable information to the communities that we've served, we put it on our website. It is not necessarily or has necessarily been documents that we've advised on what languages they should be translated into. That being said, we have, as a result of this pandemic, we've really, I think we've always known the need for language access and making sure that materials and information coming from state government is translated at the very least into the languages that the community needs to see it in. And I think now we're seeing it even more, and there's been even a stronger highlight on this conversation, and it has allowed us to elevate it and be able to advocate for more materials being translated into different languages. So like I said, for the pandemic response, an executive order information that we've been translating, I know we're translating it at least into simplified Chinese, and I want to say maybe one other Asian language. That being said, I know there's a need for more, and we really wish that we can translate into all of the languages that are needed. And fortunately, we have this wonderful diverse state in which there's so much diversity and a diverse set of languages spoken across our ethnic communities that it would be very difficult to translate into all of the languages right now, given kind of the shortage of resources and funding that we have for this. That's not to say that that isn't a long-term goal. And so, you know, obviously, ideally, long-term, we could have everything translated into all the languages needed. But in the meantime, like I said earlier, we've really relied on individuals like yourselves and the chair of MAPAC to really be like, okay, here's this information. What's the most important 1 or 2 languages that we get this translated into that it can reach the most people? And in addition to the executive orders from the governor's office, I know we've worked really closely with MIOSHA to get their materials translated into different languages, and we continue to do the same with other departments and agencies.
Right now, there is a lack of AAPI representation in high-level position in the Michigan government or economic roundtable discussion. How can AAPI be more involved in the policy decision process?
Yeah, so I think the first and most important thing is something that I was talking about before, and that is really being engaged in the appointments process. And what I mean by that is that every quarter, the governor's office, I think through the website, lets the public know, hey, here are the upcoming appointments on boards and commissions, which we know how important boards and commissions, what an important role they play within state government and in informing policy. And so they put out all the openings and ask for resumes and ask for people to apply. And there's a real commitment to making sure that there's diversity within all of these boards and commissions. So it's not just, hey, if you're AAPI, come join MAPAC. It's no, if you're API, sure, we'd love to have you on MAPAC, but you should also think about the Women's Commission or the commission on, you know, for the disabled community. And, you know, there's so many different commissions on such a diverse set of issues. And I know there's experts within your community who would be great. And so, but we need to know that they're there, right? So for those of you listening in on this call, for Lisa and Grace and others within the commission, you know, we need you all to kind of make sure that people know about this process and then push them to apply. You know, it's really a partnership to make sure we can identify those individuals and get them serving in these roles in government.
Fayrouz, you have a very successful career in public service. What is your advice to our audience if they are interested in dedicating their life to the public service?
I love this question because I would love to see more people, especially women and people of color and immigrant communities in government and public service. And so, look, there's no one path into a career in public service, and that's the really great part. So regardless of what you're interested in, whether it's science, whether it's law, whether it's anthropology, you know, so on and so forth, there's a path for you and there's a place for you in public service and in government. The most important piece of that is not what you study or where you study, I would say, but what your values are and where you want to make a difference. And then how do you connect to that and how do you get there? And that's the most important first piece. I remember being in college and frankly, it was the 9/11 that made a big difference in my life and everything that came after 9/11. And as an Arab American woman, you know, I felt deeply impacted by obviously the tragedy that hit our country, and then felt really sad to see how Arab Americans were adversely affected by the policies. And that's when I decided I wanted to be in government. I wanted to work in public service because I wanted to be a voice for my community on the inside. and be able to bring better representation and have more fair and balanced property policies that affect our communities. And so that's the most important question to first ask yourself when thinking about a career in public service. And for me, I got involved because by starting to work on campaigns, finding people who were running for office that I believed in and that I wanted to support. And then through that, I began meeting people and learning about opportunities within government that were available. And that's how I kind of got a lot of the positions I have, and have been so fortunate to have had them and have had people along the way who have really helped guide me. And so that's the other next important piece, is that if you know where you want to go, or maybe you have an idea, but you're not sure how to get there, find a mentor within your community, someone who can help guide you, someone who can give you the advice, or maybe even help introduce you to people. That's an incredibly effective way. And I will say, I love it when young people come to me and reach out and ask for my advice. I think a lot of us in government and politics, we like talking. So it just gives us another opportunity to talk to someone. So never feel shy about reaching out to someone and asking them for that guidance, and talking to them and asking someone to be your mentor. And then finally, positions in government, especially government isn't the only place to be in public service, but nevertheless, if government is what you're interested in, a lot of times they're online, they're posted for federal government, it's USA Jobs. For state government, it's posted kind of within the portal, and I actually don't know the website to be exact, but I think every department and agency posts their job opportunities. And so, really staying on top of that and seeing what's available and seeing what gets posted. And then, your state reps, your state senators, your governors, your US senators and US Congress people, so on and so forth, they all host coffee hours and town halls, and they all do these types of really information sessions and community events like I was talking about that we do earlier. You need to go to those and learn how government works. Ask questions, develop those relationships. If you're young and in college, ask about internships. That's a great way to start in public service. And so really just thinking strategically and being a little bit focused about where you want to go. Don't feel like you have to know all the answers to what you want to be when you grow up, but nevertheless, if you don't know exactly what it is you want to do, then go out there and seek those answers or seek those questions through all the means that I just listed. So that's the best advice I could give.
Thank you so much, Fayrouz. You and Grace, two ladies, I admire a lot. Thank you. I'm sure Grace and I appreciate you taking your time to be on our show.
Yeah, thank you, Fayrouz. It's very inspirational and very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, like I said at the beginning, I admire you two ladies and really appreciate the opportunity to have to work with you all. And so you've been instrumental, especially during such a critical time. So I really appreciate the work that you all do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe our channel for our next episode. See you then.
您好，我叫 Cindy， 我是印尼2020年人口普查员。我的工作是探访并协助尚未完成普查的家庭。我会佩戴口罩，以确保每个人的安全。普查数据有助于分配每年数千亿的公共资金。抓住这次机会，您可选择上网、邮寄、致电，或由普查员协助完成问卷。你我未来由此展开。请上2020 census.gov/languages 完成普查。